I hope you'll pardon the lighting. It's very stormy outside, and so I have no natural light whatsoever, and so things are going to be a little bit dark and gloomy today. But that's okay, because it kind of fits what we're going to be talking about today. Today we're going to be talking about 1:35 a.m. As always, I'm going to give a quick summary for each story, then I'm going to go into some theories, and just kind of talk about them, and what I feel about these stories. Okay, so without any further ado, actually, if you're wondering, yes, I've done this on every single book so far, and yes, I know I'm late. I'm trying to catch up, because I started later than most YouTubers did. But if you want to find the other videos, there should be a playlist either at the end of this video or in the playlist section on my channel. Okay, now, without any further ado, let's get into the story. So the first story, obviously, is 1:35 a.m. And it's about a woman named Delilah. And she has recently gotten divorced. And she's always wanted to have this little baby called Emma. And she was hoping to, before the divorce. But now, she's sad, she's kind of depressed, and now the only thing that she really enjoys, it seems, is sleep. She likes to sleep and get away. And so, she's very sad. And one day, when she's at a garage sale, she finds this doll named Ella, made by Fazbear Entertainment. One thing to note is that this doll, Ella, is the same doll as in the original book series. I don't know if you guys have read the original book series, but there was a doll named Ella. I don't think this is the exact same one, but it's definitely interesting, because it's very similar, at least. And so she takes the Ella doll home with her, and she used to have tons of different functions, this Ella doll, but now the only one that works is her alarm clock. And so Delilah sets the alarm for 1:35 p.m., and it doesn't wake her up in time. The alarm clock does not work, so she throws Ella out immediately. No hesitation, she throws the doll out. Doesn't think that maybe something went wrong. Nope, just time to throw the doll out. And so that night, she wakes up at 1:35 a.m. And she realizes she must have set the time wrong to a.m. instead of p.m. And so she goes to rescue Ella from the dumpster. But she can't find her. She can't find Ella in the dumpster. And so she just decides, oh well, I'll have to get a new alarm clock. But as the story continues, every night she starts waking up at 1:35 a.m. And she starts hearing sounds coming from her window, coming from the floor, coming from the side of her bed. And every time when she goes to turn on the light, Ella is not there. Ella is never once there, but she can hear her. Every night at 1:35 a.m. she's woken up and she can hear her. And so, she starts slowly getting more paranoid, and she takes the night shift at her job, and Ella is still there, even if she isn't woken up. She'll always be attacked by Ella at 1:35 a.m., but the thing is, she never sees Ella. She might catch a glimpse of her dress, but she never actually sees Ella, or gets a good glimpse. And no one else sees Ella. No one else hears these sounds. And so eventually, she gets so paranoid that she is driving away from town to try and escape Ella, and in the end, she crawls into a vent shaft of a building under construction, and then, she dies there. We don't see her die, but she can't escape. She can't get out. It's made very clear that she cannot escape the vent shaft. And so, that's where the story ends. So, a pretty basic concept. Nothing too complex to talk about for this story. But the weird thing is, again, how, and again, Matt Pat has mentioned this in his theories, kids are being drawn to these places. And in this case, a grown adult woman is being drawn to this doll. The other weird thing is, Ella, I doubt, is the same Ella from the original book series. And yet, she seems exactly the same. If you remember, in the original book series, Ella, the doll who was Charlie's doll, she had an illusion disc, and the illusion disc could make her look like a real baby, feel like a real baby. And it's mentioned at one point in this story that this Ella her skin feels like a real baby's. Maybe something to think about. Maybe it is the same Ella. I have no idea. I just don't think so. If it is the same Ella, then there's other questions like how was she found? Who found her? How did she get to this garage sale? But the other, I don't think it is the same Ella, because it's mentioned when Delilah is researching where this doll came from that there are others. This was a whole line of dolls that were being mass-produced. It wasn't just one doll made by Henry for his daughter. This is a bunch of different dolls. And they were discontinued because something was wrong with them. So it seems like either something is wrong with all of them that were released and then they were discontinued, or maybe it was just this one and there was something really wrong with it that caused the whole line of these dolls just to be shut down. We don't know. The other thing is, again, Ella is never seen throughout this book. And so the big question, right, is Ella real? I mean, I think the doll is real. I think the doll is real. But is she actually trying to attack Delilah, or is it all in her head? Because, obviously Delilah isn't in a very good mental state. It's possible, I suppose, for Ella to, because again, if she has an illusion disc or something, she can totally cause Delilah to hallucinate, and I think that's what it is. But it could also just be Delilah's mind playing tricks on her. We don't know. I actually kind of like it that we don't know. I like it that how the story never tells us, because it lets us talk about these things. We'll never know, probably. And so yeah, in the end, Delilah dies. One thing people have pointed out is that in Sister Location, if you remember, Hand Unit tells us that there was a body found in the vents of Sister Location. Do I think this is the same building? Do I think this is the same vent, the same body? No. Do I think it's even related? Probably not. But it's interesting to point out, and it's worth thinking about. I give 1:35 a.m. a 7 out of 10. It's not my favorite. It's pretty good, but it's not my favorite. I feel like it took a long time to kind of, I don't know, I just felt like it was really repetitive, The next story is actually the shortest one in the book. I feel like this one could have been the shortest one in the book. It could have been a lot shorter. But that being said, I would like to stress that I do definitely like it. Okay, second story is, we're moving along pretty quickly here, actually. Second story is Room for One More. And this story is about a man named Stanley. Again, not a kid this time, a grown man. And he works at a facility underground. Okay, now stop me if you've heard this one. It's a facility underground. And he's a security guard. And his job, as it says in the book, is not to keep things out. It is to keep things in. And so, immediately when I started this story, I was excited. Because finally, we're getting some security guard action in these stories. So I thought maybe there'd be a bit more action in this story. There really isn't. There isn't too much action in this story, but I still really liked it. And so every night, Stanley will find a doll at the side of his desk. See because he has the night shift, right? And so he every night takes a nap, and when he wakes up, he finds a doll by his desk. And it's never said that it's a mini Rena doll, but we can kind of guess that it is. It's because it says that it has segmented limbs like an artist's doll. I don't know if you guys have seen an artist's doll. Here's one. We worked with them in our art class at school. This is the thing. This is what it looks like. And this is a mini Rena. This is a mini Rena. Clearly, there's some similarities here, and I think that the doll that it's talking about here is a mini Rena, and I'm pretty sure we can all agree on that. And so every night he's woken up by one of these, and the weird thing is they talk in this story. They talk in the games too. They do, but they talk in here as well. And they seem to have pre-recorded lines. And so he falls asleep again. And when he wakes up, the doll is gone. They keep asking him to take them home with him, and he keeps saying he's going to, but then when he wakes up, they're gone. The weird thing is he never really he doesn't really get too concerned about the fact that these dolls are just showing up in his office. He really doesn't seem to care that much. He's like, oh, okay, I guess that happened. And then he falls asleep again. But every day, as this happens, he starts to grow a little more bloated. And he starts to actually get swollen, his throat is itchy, and he feels miserable. He can't eat anything. And so eventually, the story kind of spends a lot of time, again, like 1:35 a.m., telling you over and over again, he's not healthy, something's wrong with him, kind of giving you clues as to what's going on. And I am ashamed to say that I did not figure out what was going on until the very end of the story. So, I'm not the brightest one. But in the end of the story, he finds one of these dolls again, and he realizes what's going on, because when he wakes up, the doll is in the middle of climbing into his mouth. Which is just an awful picture. I hate these things. I was never that scared of these mini arenas in Sister Location, but in this story, that is very different. So, they're crawling into his mouth, and he realizes what's going on. And so he tries to escape, right? Because he's trying to get help now. But he feels their little fists pounding through his arm. And so he's trying to escape, but he feels like he could actually explode. And then he's almost at the outside of the building, when another mini arena comes in and says, "Isn't there room for just one more?" and jumps inside of him as he opens his mouth to scream, and the story ends. One thing that I would like to talk about before I go into the actual meat of this story is something that I didn't really talk about during the summary, is that Stanley, throughout the story, has nightmares. He has nightmares, and all of them feature the Sister Location animatronics. So if there was any doubt that this story takes place in Sister Location, that will immediately, no doubt, he has nightmares with Sister Location animatronics. In the first one, he wakes up, right, and he's going to go to work. And he goes outside. But the street names are all different. None of the street names are the same. They're all, one says Fazbear Avenue, he mentions. He hasn't talked about the other ones, but he says they're all the same. They're all different. And so he goes into a taxi to find his way to work. And the taxi driver takes him to work. But it's revealed that the taxi driver is Funtime Foxy. So, as if a time-traveling ball pit wasn't the craziest part of this series, now we have Funtime Foxy driving a car. So, this series has taken quite some turns. In the next one, it's a bit more normal, if you can call it that. He's in the facility, and the power is out, and so he's trying to find his way around the building when Funtime Freddy shows up and attacks him. And again, he wakes up. That's 2 Sister Location animatronics, plus the mini arenas, which we've already seen in this story. In the last one, and probably the weirdest one, he's in a dentist chair. And the dentist is Ennard, and his assistant is Ballora. I feel like these nightmares should mean something, but I really don't think they do. I don't know what Scott was thinking when he was writing this story. With these portions specifically. Don't know what these nightmares are about, but they're in the story, so, I doubt they mean anything. It's just really weird. A really weird detail. It's mentioned in the story that Stanley, his girlfriend left him, right? And she left him for a dude, and one of Stanley's friends is like, "Oh yeah, I saw them. Your girlfriend and her new boyfriend by the snack space." That doesn't seem too important until you realize the snack space was actually mentioned in the first book of the series. In the first book, first story, Oswald, do you remember him? Oswald's dad works at a snack space, maybe at the snack space. I don't know if it's a chain thing. But either way, it seems to show that these 2 stories are set at least in the same universe. Although I thought they did already in the first place. So possibly that's the same snack space, or at least part of the same chain. Also, this story proves that, yes, animatronics can go inside of people's bodies. Even if they're just small animatronics, like the mini-arenas, that is something that can happen in these stories. It seems a bit more far-fetched with something like Ennard crawling inside someone like we see in Sister Location, but we know at least that it can happen. It can happen, at least with these small mini-arena dolls. Okay, and that's all I really want to talk about for the second story, because the third story is the most crazy. But first, I'd like to... I rate Room for One More an 8.5. 8.5 out of 10. Because, again, the nightmares are confusing, and it takes a long time to get to the point, but I like it. I love the twist. I love how we actually get to see the Sister Location for once here, and I like how we get to have a cameo from each of the Funtime animatronics, except for Baby, interestingly enough. Baby never shows up, which is weird. But I like it. I like this story. Okay, let's move on to the third one. The New Kid. Sounds like an innocent enough title. When I read this story, I had no spoilers for it. For the previous books, I think I had some spoilers, like I knew Plushtrap was out of stock and stuff, but for this story, I had no spoilers. Okay, nothing. And so I didn't know where this story was going to go, which made where it did go very, very shocking. And so in this story, we meet Devin and his friend Mick. And they're both kind of social outcasts, right? They don't really have many friends. They're each other's friend and no one else. And so one day, there is a new kid. There's a new kid at school. Hence the story name. I know, shocker. And this new kid is a very interesting guy. Everyone likes him. Everyone likes him, and he's very charismatic. But the weird thing is, he likes hanging out with the two outcasts. And so they make friends, but Devin quickly gets jealous of him. Now, the thing to note about Devin is he's a very weird guy. Okay, he's very weird. He's absolutely obsessed with this girl named Heather. And she's all he thinks about. Even though it's very, very clear that she does not like him in the slightest. He overhears her at one point very early on in the story. He overhears her saying how she doesn't like her sisters, they're annoying, or at least that she got annoyed with them. And so he decides to, write a story where they both get brutally murdered by a giant bouncy house. Devin is a weird kid. Devin and Mick, they hang out at this treehouse, right? But one day, the treehouse is torn down. And so they have to find a new place to hang out. And Kelsey is willing to help them. In fact, the main problem I have with the story is that it takes a long time to get to any sort of action here, whereas it didn't really have to take that long. But about halfway through the story, they go to a new abandoned place to make their hideout. Devin found it, and he's trying to lead them all to it to show them this place. Now, one thing to note is that at this point, Devin is very jealous of Kelsey. He's very jealous, but on the day where he leads them to this new abandoned place, he seems a lot more cheery than normal. And so, they go to this abandoned place, which is revealed to be a Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica are on the stage still. Everything looks abandoned, but like no one had any time to really clean anything up. Like it was just, everyone just up and left. And so they hunt around, looking for cool stuff. One thing to mention is that there is a dog head in the backstage. There's a dog head along with all the other animatronic heads. There's a dog head. So once again, Fetch is mentioned. Not only is Fetch, he has his own story. Not only is he, spoiler alert, part of the Stitch Wraith. Not only is he just seemingly a really important character in this series, now we get another dog head mentioned here. So it seems like Fetch is just very important. I keep saying that, but it seems like so. Now the weird thing is, so they're hunting around, right? And they find Golden Freddy. Again, I want to say this again. I had no idea what was going on when I first read this story. There have been some shocking stories in this series so far, but this one, I'd say, really takes the cake. At first when it said a yellow suit, I thought, okay, maybe Springtrap. Because I've been wanting a Springtrap story for so long. By the way, apparently we are getting a Springtrap story in the latest book in the series, Bunny Call, which is coming out in a month, September. So, I'm really excited for that, because he's one of my favorite characters, and he was in the original books, but he never really had much of an appearance. But apparently we're getting him soon. And so I thought this was Springtrap at first, and I was hyped. But I realized, it could be Golden Freddy as well. Could be something entirely different. It was Golden Freddy. And so they're really interested by this old suit, much older than the ones on stage. So they drag him out of the closet that they find him in, carry him to the center of the pizzeria, and then Devin's like, wow, he actually, Golden Freddy looks like you, Kelsey. He smiles the same way that you do, Kelsey. And his hair, is similar. He's trying to find these similarities. Doesn't seem like there's actually many similarities, but he's trying to find them. And Kelsey's like, yeah, I should go inside this suit. And so, one thing to mention is, in a series about dead children, in a series that is entirely revolving around dead children, for some reason I didn't think Scott was going to kill a child in this book. Don't ask me why. I didn't think we'd ever actually see it. It's one thing to see it in an 8-bit minigame, but in a book, in excruciating detail? Because let me tell you, this story described it in such unbelievably awful ways. I suppose I just kind of spoiled what happened. Kelsey, yeah, he dies. He goes in the Springlock suit. One thing to mention. I keep saying that. I keep saying one thing to mention. One thing to mention is that it happens, right? He gets springlocked when he has both of his arms out at his side. He's in a T-pose, and that's when he gets springlocked. Now, if you remember, back to the FNAF 3 minigames, what did Spring Bonnie, purple guy, what was he doing when he got springlocked? He was going like this too. Alright, you can see it in the minigame. He's T-posing as well. So, that might just be a crazy coincidence, but as we all know, Scott don't do coincidences. So, it's something to think about for sure. So yeah, I was in absolute shock when Kelsey died. I don't know why it came as such a shock to me. And so, Devin and Nick freak out. They freak out because they just killed a friend. Mostly Devin because he had this entire thing planned. It was all going to be an elaborate prank. He was planning to keep Kelsey there for a few hours just to get revenge on him for something. But now he's dead. And they wait a whole week before they go back and they check on him. They're like, we have to get out of here. We have to go. He's dead. What are we going to do? But a week later, they're both feeling very guilty, obviously. And so Devin goes back. He tells Nick, whatever you do, wait for me. I'll come back. Do not come, don't tell anyone where I am, or else they might find out. And so, Devin, he goes back to the pizzeria, and, he sees the Golden Freddy suit there, surrounded by blood on the floor, and he tries to pry its jaw open with a hammer. He tries to see inside to see if Kelsey's alive. He tries to stick his hand inside. He tries to stick his hands inside the bear suit, when all of a sudden he hears someone call his name. Now, this is never explained. It's never said who called his name. Never. But someone calls his name, and all of a sudden, he jolts his arm out, and he triggers the spring locks, and his arm gets shot through with a pole or something, some mechanical part. It's never said what. So his arm is stuck there. He's trying to get it out, but it gets more stuck, like a Chinese finger trap. And so he's stuck there. and he's trying to get out, and all of a sudden he feels bugs crawling on his hand. He's trying to escape. He can't. He tries to reach to look inside the suit to see what's there, and he does see a body. But it's not Kelsey. It's a kid with black curly hair. And as soon as he sees it, he is pulled inside the suit. But the story isn't over, because there's one last scene. Mick is disappointed that Devin doesn't come back, but he decides he's not going to tell anyone, just like Devin told him to. And then there's one more scene. And this scene is from the perspective of Kelsey. When I first read through it, I thought, oh, it's a flashback. You know, a flashback to the day where they all met each other before, two of them died. But no, this is not a flashback. This is a flash forward. What happens is Kelsey meets two new kids in a school. And he asks them if there are any cool places to hang out. And the story ends. How do we know this isn't just a flashback? One, that's not how they met at all. They didn't meet in a schoolyard. They met in a school classroom. Also, it's mentioned that these boys are snickering at the kids that pass them. Devin and Mick, they're just kind of social outcasts. They don't snicker at anyone. They just don't have any friends. And their conversation also is entirely different from how Kelsey and Mick and Devin met. This is an entirely different conversation. And so, what does this mean? Who knows? You tell me. I have no idea. I'm going to try and go through this one by one, because I have no idea. Even after this book has been out for like 3 months, I have no idea what it means. The first thing to mention is the scuttling noises that they hear in the pizzeria. The whole time they're there, they hear noises coming from inside the walls. This might not be related to anything going on in the story, but I figured I'd mention it. But we don't know what it is. The other thing to mention is when Devin, his name is called. Who calls his name? I would assume Kelsey. But it's never said, "Oh, Kelsey, where are you?" No. So it could be anyone. Again, we don't know. And who is the kid Devin sees when he's pulled inside the suit? Again, we don't know. What is Kelsey? We don't know. We have no answers. I think we can assume Kelsey isn't quite human. One theory that I've heard is that there's two souls possessing Golden Freddy. One is Kelsey, and the other is that other kid. Could be. I don't know. We don't know. No one knows. We have no answers, and it's the most frustrating thing ever. Maybe one day we'll find out, but for now we don't know. I think it's safe to say that there are probably two souls possessing Golden Freddy. One, see, a lot of people have been saying that it can't be Cassidy. I'm not sure about that. The only difference between this kid and Cassidy, because the kid that Devin sees in the suit, right, has black curly hair. Cassidy has black straight hair. Hair can be curled, so I don't think that's immediately rules off Cassidy. But it could also be the bite victim. The bite victim from FNAF 4 could also be in Golden Freddy. It would make sense. He was bitten by Fredbear. But then again, who is Kelsey? We still don't know who Kelsey is. Is he not even a real person? Is he some sort of figment? Something that's not real? We don't know. I wish I had answers. Maybe we will get answers, but for now, we have no idea. I'm just trying to throw out some hypotheses here. Okay, and moving on to the Stitch Wraith story. In the Stitch Wraith story, we meet a man named Phineas, and he is a scientist. Now, this is not the first time that Phineas has been mentioned. He's also mentioned in the first story, 1:35 a.m., where Delilah is researching. She's researching who Ella is, where Ella came from, and she sees an online ad about a man named Phineas, who's looking for a special Ella doll. But now we actually meet him, and he's a weird scientist, right? He's studying some weird things. I'm back. Where were we? Oh yeah, okay, we were talking about the Stitch Wraith again. Okay. So, Phineas, weird guy, weird scientist. What's he studying? He's studying emotions. Sound familiar? Yes, that's exactly what Greg was doing, in Fetch. He was studying, more so REGs, random event generators, and how emotions can impact those, how the human mind can impact an REG. Well, Phineas is focusing more on emotions and how, well, let's find his own words. Let's put it in his own words. You're only looking at the short-term timeline, Phineas said. You see the result of the shotgun's energy, so it seems greater to you. Human emotion is slower to impact, more insidious. It emanates from us, or is excreted from us, if you will, like sweat or tears, and it wafts outward like a noxious cloud, soaking into the surroundings. For some time I've been studying the effect of these emotions. And so what Phineas does is he orders items online that are full of emotion, and what he is doing is he's trying to put them into a robot and see if he can get it to live purely on the power of emotion alone. And so he's got this new shipment of objects that he's just about to open. And the weird thing is, in his little lab thing, he has all these torture devices lying around. A rack, a head crusher, a wheel, a Judas cradle. Weird things. Very strange. But he buys them because they are packed with emotion. Negative emotion, mostly. You know, I don't think a torture device would be packed with happy emotions. But the new things that he's ordered are a bit different. So first, what he sees is a stack of party plates. Nothing too weird about that. Then he finds a wall mirror that, he says, watched a man murder his entire family. Obviously, that's going to be filled with agony and negative emotions. A jack-in-the-box, which is empty, weird. Possibly the puppets box, maybe? And then a man-size endoskeleton. Probably from Freddy's. And so what he does is he gets right to work. He starts... It says, hooking together the lines and electrodes of his various energy-measuring devices, he set up what he thought of as an energy cascade. The machine would pour energy already captured from previous items into the first new item. In this case, the plates. And then usher that energy through all the additional new items until they culminated in the endoskeleton. So, you know, a bit weird. He's messing with things that no one really knows about yet. He's the first person to really try this, and it doesn't go well. So after the endoskeleton is working, apparently, it says he tests its energy levels, and it's ready, it's working. And so he adds a head onto it, which is weird. The head, what he does is he picks a doll out of a box. And what it says is, it has rainbow fingertips, green knees, brown smudges on its body and legs, and various bibs and bobs glued to it, one of which appeared to be a smiley face eraser. First thing you think of when you hear a doll is Ella. I don't think this is Ella, though. This is very weird. Just basically blank from Five Nights at Candy's. So he adds the head of it onto his endoskeleton. This is where things get interesting. The item in the second box was an animatronic dog that clearly no longer functioned. Phineas sat at his shoulders and prepared himself to touch it. The dog was an ugly dog. Fetch. He sensed the dog had been responsible for some powerful agony. He'd never been entirely comfortable having it around, but now he was going to take it apart so it wouldn't be a threat. Or will it? And so he takes out the, what does it say? He takes out a plastic encased unit, and he puts it into the endoskeleton's chest. Once that's done, it says immediately it became more than an endoskeleton. It became an endoskeleton of great energy, and it moved. And so Phineas laughs, and the thing looks at him with his black marker eyes. He keeps laughing, and then the being reaches out to touch him. The metal fingers meet his skin, and then it says, in one crowded instant, 3 things happened. Phineas saw the being's battery pack pulse bright red. He suddenly sensed danger and attempted to throw up a mental shield. He began to convulse, grabbing his head to attempt to contain the excruciating pain that annihilated his consciousness. And so what happens next is one of his friends finds Phineas dead in his lab. But not only dead, it says he was withered into near mummification, his mouth gaping open, his eyes gone. Sound familiar? Yeah, this is... Remember, in the very first Stitch Wraith story, in Into the Pit, it mentions withered bodies with black eyes, and tear streaks, I believe it was, running down the sides of their faces. Clearly this is the same thing, and clearly this is the Stitch Wraith. It says in the very end here that the Stitch Wraith grabs a cloak and runs off. Definitely the Stitch Wraith. So once again, first we saw it with Greg, now we're seeing it with Phineas. People are experimenting with emotions. This just opens up so many opportunities, right? It doesn't seem like it at first, but this could explain a lot of things that we've seen in this series before. In Into the Pit, the Spring Bonnie and the Ball Pit could be agony-infused objects that are just covered in bad emotions and therefore act paranormally. That's what creates haunted objects. Any of the haunted objects or animatronics in these stories could have agony in them, negative emotions. And so, we don't know if that's true, but I'm beginning to think, the more these books are coming out, and with the next book, Step Closer, which I recently read, it seems very, very similar. Like I'm onto something here. And I'm not the only person to suggest this, but it seems like agony is what's powering a lot of the things that are weird in these books. We still don't know why the Stitch Wraith is collecting other animatronics. We saw he collected Plushtrap. There was Plushtrap, and apparently he has Fetch inside of him. But we don't know why he's collecting these things just yet. I think that's all I have for now. Thank you guys for watching. This has been a bit of a longer one. I hope you enjoyed. I'll do Step Closer next. A Bunny Call is coming out in like a few weeks, so I better hurry. Again, thank you guys for watching. If you're new here, maybe like, subscribe. Even if you're not new here, make sure to like, because that would be helpful. I'm a YouTuber. I have to say these things. It's in the contract. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.